That's like his go-to image, man.
Yeah.
Except for the sandwich. I don't see the sandwich, but
Oh, my bad. I got you.
yeah.
There it is. There's the sandwich. So I think we're live already. So just say hello to everyone,
everyone.
while Michael eats his sandwich. So please, everyone, introduce themselves, and we'll go from there.
You want to start with me on top or whatever?
Yeah, we'll go. Yeah. You start.
Well, I mean, I have a name attached to me, JD Glasscock, and no, it's not a pen name, and I know I don't write harem, but I have a couple series. I have Blood Brother. I just started writing novels a little over a year ago. I have 5 books in my first series, Blood Brothers. That's like fantasy portal, and then or lit RPG portal. And then I have a second series I started that I'm working on book 2. It's a called The Dream, and it's more post-apocalyptic lit RPG. And then I'm going to start a third series here soon that's going to be grim dark superhero lit RPG. But anyway, that's me.
Kevin?
Kevin Sinclair, and my most current series is Creation Spain. You can find I have 4 series out, which you can find on my Amazon page under my name.
Tao?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tao Wong. I write a whole bunch of series, including the System Apocalypse, which you can see in the background. That's with Katie Hanna. I just released another co-author series within the System Apocalypse with Craig Hamilton, and there's another one coming out with David Packer at the start of November 1st, all within the System Apocalypse world. And I'll be talking.
And Mike?
First off, Craig Hamilton, that's a cool dude. But yeah, my name's Michael Head. I currently have 2 series. One's called Threads of Fate, which is a pure cultivation series, and then another series called Wandering Warrior. Right now it has book 1 out called Judge. Book 2 is moving into edits right now, and that's will be Jury, and there'll be another one called Executioner that comes out. That will move into edits hopefully before the end of this year. And then right after that, I'll be moving back into Threads of Fate and hopefully finishing up that series before the end of next year.
And I haven't introduced myself. So hello, everyone. I'm Emmanuel Quinones. I work under TJ for the Dying Book series, but I'll be the moderator for today. And our panel is about Want to Fight. So essentially fight scenes and how you incorporate it into the books. So I got a question for you guys. Essentially, wrote down my notepad here, but for first question is going to be: does any of your real life experiences play into how you write fight scenes? we can start with we'll start the opposite way. This way, we'll start with Tao.
Okay. Yes. I mean, I've done martial arts on and off for about 25 plus years. So a lot of what I've done in terms of martial arts, self-defense, training, and scenario building and all of that kind of plays into a lot of the fight scenes and how I do it and how I teach people or when I've done teaching. So all of that, explaining all of that kind of plays in hugely when it comes to writing fight scenes.
Okay. How about you, Michael?
I spent 15 years in the Army before I was medically retired from being injured in a combat zone. I had almost 800 combat missions. I spent some time on some doing some special cool guy stuff. I also spent some time as a combatives instructor, as an Army combatives instructor. So doing all of those things, it really allows you to put together a good mental picture of what a real life fight looks like. In not only that, but being in real life and death situations, it allows you to tap into the what it feels like mentally whenever you're in those situations, as well as like the cadence and the speed of a fight, because it's not like sometimes it moves so much it's so fast compared to what people might expect it to be, and then other times there's like these weird pauses, like in a real fight, like it's like everybody takes this unconscious break, and whether that's everybody's reloading or repositioning or whatever, sometimes that people don't expect that kind of thing to happen, but it's real and it happens, and it's not planned. It's just a thing that happens. It's like real life battles, real life war is not it's not clean and it's not smooth, but it does have a natural, it does have a certain kind of flow all its own. And so that is definitely something that I like to tap into when I'm writing. And now I'm going to eat my sandwich.
Enjoy it. Kevin.
I kind of feel that we should have finished on Michael, because anything else is going to be a little bit anticlimactic after that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know, like I've been blown up. I literally was in the trenches.
Yes, I used my vast experience of near death. 15 years of being blown up and shot. So for me, quite different, no military experience, but I boxed from a young age, about 8, until I was about 23, and I've been in the odd fight here and there throughout my life. Not since I've had kids, thankfully. But
I fight more.
I'm not allowed anymore
because their teenagers are evil.
But yeah, I totally bring what I know into the experience, the fear that's sort of always there, and the coldness that comes when you realize there's like no way out and this is happening. So yeah, definitely.
I come at it from a different angle. Like I took martial arts when I was younger, but I don't know how much that applies in the sense of writing fight scenes. But I also lived on the streets slinging poetry books, and unfortunately spent way too much time in bars and got in scraps. But I come from more of the Tarantino standpoint. I've literally spent 47 years since I was 5 eating up every book I could and watching every film that I've ever, my whole life eating up film. And then I've shot a bunch of film, worked on a bunch of films, dealt with choreographers and fight sequencers and all that kind of stuff. So I try to bring a lot of that experience and just keep kinetic movement and energy and tight. I think it comes from my film background, keeping everything tightly woven in movement.
Gotcha. So we have a question here from Kyle Wilkinson that kind of ties into all this. So do you seek experts when preparing to write a fight scene involving a special weapon?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Okay, well, that's already one person down. Sweet. So JD, we'll hit you first.
Hey,
we'll go to Michael.
Decided that I was sorry. I'm trying to find something. When I first decided I was going to write my first novel a little over a year ago, I had a friend of mine that was a fan of my. He lives in Europe. That was a fan of my film stuff. And so we were talking about it, and it was right when I was beginning to write it. And he said, "Well, if you're writing that in fantasy, what are your MC's weapons? Because that's an important choice." And I said, I had already thought about that, and I said, "Hey, I like the Sayax and a Viking one-handed axe. That's what I'm going to have him do." Next thing I know, within a month later, I get these delivered to my house. He literally had them
Nice.
handmade.
Is that the best?
So I mean, obviously, I don't know how much they cost, but I imagine that they're literally super nice and super real.
Yeah.
And so it was fun to actually when I was doing the fight scenes in there, I actually could grab those and play around with them and see how the movement. And probably one thing that literally Vikings had some insane forearms, man. That's a one-handed axe, and that shit would weighs a lot. And when I was even trying to swing it around one-handed, I was like, holy crap, dude. Vikings must have just been doing forearm curls from the age of 3.
Definitely not small people. So yeah. And if that's Damascus, that's easily worth a lot of money.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he's been very supportive of a lot of shit I do.
And Tao?
Not exactly. I've mostly write people who don't use guns or real guns because I don't have enough of a background in that to write it well enough especially compared to people like Michael and whatnot. I have been incredibly fortunate to have a chance to play around with a lot of melee weapons. So I've got quite a bit of background in that. And I pick up a lot of it while talking to other people within the Western martial arts, HEMA communities, or, the Wushu stuff. So not exactly. I rarely have to ask people. If I need something specific, I'll either go to YouTube or I've got a whole bunch of books on old styles and whatnot as well.
Okay. So that kind of ties into my question that I wrote here. How do you balance telling versus showing when you're writing a fight scene, and what helps you guide the reader to understand better on what that is? And I guess we'll start. Ken, we'll start with you.
Telling rather than showing. That's the question. Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part. Yep.
I don't know. I think there's a different cadence to the story generally when you come to a fight scene, and I certainly try to avoid being over descriptive. Where I might in the story, I try to cut that down for the fight scene itself because I like to keep it nice and fast paced and flowing well. So I wouldn't be sort of a step left and swung like a big right looping axe shot. It would be sort of describe the action and then sort of try and bring in a little bit of emotion as well. But rather than saying he was angry, it would be his blood was pumping or something like that.
Okay. How about you, JD?
My advice as far as writing fights, I have the same advice for young filmmakers. So, like, you got to know what you're good at and what you're not good at and be humble enough to accept that truth. So, but there's ways of cheating. So, like, I think me and James Hunter have talked about this before. Like, Robert Jordan, me and him both love Robert Jordan. Robert Jordan literally named all of his fight sequences like River Through the Swallow and Over the Mountain and all this imagery that really, if you broke it down, doesn't really mean anything. You know what I mean? But it was cool to read because basically he used that to kind of set up all his fight scenes where he wasn't really having to explain it except through all these little phrasing that he had set up earlier in the book. And I tell the same thing to if you're brilliant at writing fight scenes, great, go for it. Keep it tight, all that stuff. But be aware, like filmmakers, a lot of times, especially indie filmmakers, they tend to not have the budget to shoot the shit they're shooting, but they try to shoot it anyway, where I would tell them, like, how about cheat? Go move the camera in tight. If you don't have the budget and these actors don't know how to actually fight, or you don't have squibs and actually can shoot the guns, then cheat with the camera. You have that. And in writing, you have a narrative tool that can do the same thing. So the best way to write fight scenes, I do believe in showing, not telling, but you still do it through words. So keep it tight, keep it kinetic, and know your strengths and weaknesses, and then realize if you're not the greatest at writing fight scenes, there's ways like Jordan did or other people have done to circumvent that lack of skill if you do it the right way. And the same thing as I've said in film.
And then Tao.
Um, so there's a few things. I mean, within that, part of it is deciding I guess the theme and the mood of your book and how in depth you want, right? How I write fight scenes for A Thousand Li, which is a Xianxia, very almost philosophical kind of fight scenes sometimes. Very different compared to writing for System Apocalypse, which is generally very much more, as Kevin says, very kinetic, very in your face. It's written in first person POV as well. So it's very much, this is what's happening and this is happening really fast. And, there's no time for rumination or anything like that. So that's a lot of that playing around into it. The other thing that you need to know is that we're writing, we don't have a visual medium for people. So being able to put people into the footsteps and the feelings and the emotions of the individual is internalizing all of that is much more important than the actual physical movements. And that's what you need to show more than the telling of, oh, he punched this guy, he moved in here, he used this, he cast healing wand, and then he did,
Okay.
and so that's all of that kind of things is more important, understanding that. That being said, I mean, that's the way I do it. I've seen other people do it differently, as JD has said, and they sell really well. So
I agree with you though. The emotional aspect of it, I think is key because that's what actually brings the reader in. I mean, they love a good fight scene, but I think the catalyst to it is what Tao said: the emotional interplay of the response to that fight.
Okay. And then Mike, what do you got for us?
Well, so I mean, when you're talking about Jordan, that's like the version like the hand wavy version of fighting versus the descriptive version of fighting. And I feel like if you get too descriptive, if you get too deep into the weeds in a fight scene, you will throw off your pacing. You know what I mean? Like it'll get too bogged down. Yes, it is a real word, Paul. Shut up. You will. You will. I literally, Paul is the name of an evil, fey, one-legged ass-kicking creature in my latest book because of Paul. That Paul, that's him.
Yeah, he does seem to be the foil on most of you guys.
Yeah. But yeah, like for me, it's like finding that balance in pacing of how much hand wavy versus how much description do I need to combine to keep my pacing smooth. Because this is, I mean, to me, pacing is one of the most important things in my books because I want the flow and the pace of my books to be at the point where it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're still up reading and you're like, oh man, dude, is it one more chapter or is it bedtime? And you're like, you know what? What's one more chapter? Let's just go. You know what I mean? I want my books to be that for somebody because those are the books that I love. You know what I mean? Like for me, Tao's Thousand Li or Kev's God of the Feast series, those both do that for me. And so I haven't read JD's stuff yet, but maybe his do that for me too.
I told you as soon as I can afford to pay you to read it, I will, man.
That's fair. But yeah, I just want to I want to be that author. I want to be that storyteller for other people. And so to do that, you have to get your pacing right. You have to keep that flow correct. You don't want to bog the story down. So, hey, Angel. So, yeah. So you gotta figure out that balance. And for me, that's heavy in description, light on hand wavy, but you just got to know when to use that hand wavy.
Gotcha.
Can we define hand wavy, man?
So like that hand wavy, that's like instead of describing, like he lifted his sword, deflecting the blade off to the right before lunging forward.
The actual action.
Yeah, as opposed to he moved his sword in sun meets the
like
sun,
Jordan, yeah,
sunrise.
like we were talking about.
Yeah.
Or you
Like-
can play with very simple things like, they exchange a flurry of blows. That's also
exactly.
hand medium.
Yeah, I guess Tao's on that side.
As opposed to breaking it down blow by blow.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's
It's like, words.
I find
Words,
that
yeah.
really what you want to do is, at least for me, a lot of my fight scenes start out with a very base description of where everything is or where people are. Whether you do it right at the start of the fight or you do it beforehand so people know where everyone is set up. And then the first encounter, often I do it in detail. So, someone's blocking or whatever, so that you get a feel of what people are doing. And then I switch into hand wavium for a bit, just because you can, once people have an idea of what's happening, you can hand wavium a whole bunch of quick actions to get to the next meaty part of the fight scene.
And do research, man, because I literally read someone recently where the main MC used a halberd, but he kept describing it like it was a pike. Like he just kept doing this with it. And I'm like, and then he kept saying, I need an axe because I can't use the halberd to chop. And I'm like, dude,
That's exactly what the fuck halberd is for.
halberd is like got
Said
a
a bad
fucking
word.
axe face. And I'm like,
Sorry,
and it
Geneva.
totally threw me out. And he did it through the entire book. I'm like, bro, how did you not at least Google an image of a halberd? Like, how do you?
Well, say goodbye to Michael now. He's being no, I'm kidding.
I'm like, I can see in a halberd. I mean, depending on the version, they often have a.
Well, I mean, it has a pike.
They do.
It has a spike on top.
But
so you
there's an
can do
axe
that,
there. There's an axe. Oh.
But we had a question here from our favorite Ryan Maxwell. So let's see. He asked, "What was your favorite fight scene, and why was it that time you went to Walmart on Black Friday?" So does that hit any recently with anyone, or is he just is him being?
He kind of directed us in one direction, man. There.
Yeah.
Is he being a smart aleck here on this one?
No, I actually
You can
have.
take the first half of that.
I have a funny true story about Black Friday. Thank you. That's good to hear, Ryan. No, there was like an 80-year-old woman that broke like a $600 watch I was wearing going after a food processor on Black Friday.
Why are you wearing a 600? Well, that's
Yeah, I know. It's my bad, but no, but no. Have you ever been to a Black Friday event and it's like you have to? You're walking by the little like things in the middle of the aisle, and we're in Walmart, and so and they have just these open bins, and they just have the stuff that's on sale in the middle. It's like you got to reach into the bin to grab the items, and there was like a dozen food processors in this that are left in this bin, and I'm reaching in to grab one, and this crazy old woman almost spear tackles me to go for the same food processor I'm going for, because on the cover it had a red design on it, but it was the same. It's like one side of the box is red and the other side is blue. It just so happened to be that side of the cover was showing red, but she thought it was the only red one still out, and so she just really wanted the red one. And so, like the little knob that comes out of your watch that changes the time, it got caught up in her sweater and she almost ripped that off. I was so mad. I almost beat up an old woman. No, man.
See, he phrased the question like that because he knew Michael would totally jump into the whole Black Friday.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So we will not listen to Ryan from here on out.
No,
Okay, gotcha.
the first half of the question is a good question.
Well, so first half. So what was it? Let me.
Favorite fight scene.
Yeah, favorite fight scene. We'll start with Kevin.
I have quite a few, to be honest. I would probably more go with authors that I love how they write fight scenes. So for me, David Gemmell writes some of the best fight scenes I've read.
Legend.
Joe Abercrombie is also brilliant at fight scenes.
Oh, Joe Abercrombie.
Yeah, so the first Law trilogy is fantastic for the fight scenes there.
You got to be realistic about these things.
You do, yes, yeah.
Bloody Nine.
And one I'd really recommend for some great fight scenes is also historic fiction. Bernard Cornwell and Con Eggleton both do amazing fight scenes. So I probably pluck a lot from those four authors in particular because they're the bulk of what I read outside the genre, and I tend to read them more often than not. Sort of almost like a comfort blanket when I need to stop reading lit RPG for a little bit.
Okay,
Kevin's
makes
so
sense.
well read. He's so fancy.
Mhm.
It's because he has a shiny.
Gemmell and Abercrombie are both brilliant, man. I agree with them on that. And then the only thing I would add is Miles Cameron. I think he's probably one of the best fight scene guys. It helps, though, in real life. He literally competes in medieval swordplay and
Oh, right. Yes,
in
Miles.
fencing. So, I mean, that does help that in real life he's actually a swords and weapons person. But his descriptions in his books are insanely good.
I'll have to check them out. I haven't read it.
And Tao?
Realistically, I kind of echo a lot of what Kevin said. Gemmell, Cornwell all do really well in fight scenes. I was just looking over at my bookcase trying to figure out if there was anyone else I would recommend. It also depends on what type of fight scenes you want. I mean, I really enjoy David Weber's fight scenes, but that's because he sets them up with giant info dumps about, all the weapons and the types of weapons. There's a combination co-author work with him and Steve White where they do a lot of sci-fi fight scenes where over the series, the weapons change and how the weapons are and whatnot, and it just goes on and on. I like that type of stuff, but it's not a fight scene in
It's like
itself.
an Asimov info dump.
If you've never read Weber, he's like that long for an info dump, and he just goes on and on and on. So it's Asimov's work is nowhere near that, but it's different, right? It's what you're trying to do with the fight scene. Whereas Gemmell really does really great epic stuff. Simon R. Green actually does.
Yeah, I love him. Nightside.
Yeah, he does some. I actually like his Deathstalker.
The Coda. Yeah, that was one of the early ones I read. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those are the ones. John Ringo does some really fast-paced, well-written fight scenes as well. At least his early stuff. I haven't read any of his later stuff, so I can't comment. Butcher does okay. I don't know if I would consider him a great fight scene person. It's fun to read though. I like how he. Actually, one thing I do like what Butcher does is how he changes the win conditions or how the character wins, where it's not just, I'm going to punch you in the face and then I'm going to punch you in the face again.
No, he usually has to outthink, strategize.
Yeah, and that's really, I think, one of the fun parts about reading things like that. Okay, I'm going to stop now.
Gotcha.
Michael?
Didn't we already do Michael's Walmart experience?
That count for me? That can count.
He hasn't written it down yet, though, so it doesn't
I'm
count.
kidding, Mike. I'm totally kidding.
No, I don't know. For me, I read an insane amount of stuff. Like I don't know. I guess I've read almost everything John Ringo's ever put out. David Weber. I mean, Joe Abercrombie. Like an insane amount of stuff. Like I spent a long time in a hospital recovering from getting blown up and all this other stuff that's happened to me. So I've read a ridiculous amount of books. And so I guess I have like this data bank of stuff as well as the real world stuff that I've been through that I just kind of have conglomeration of stuff I just put together for me. And then sometimes I'll go back and reread some stuff. Like, I don't know. It's not even that great for fight scenes, but Starship Troopers. I don't know.
That was innovative. That was original, at least the concept of what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was the yes, fighting old women. Exactly. It put me in a hospital for a long time. But no,
Hey, as a nod to Geneva, though, holy fucking shit in a handbasket. There you go, Geneva. There you go.
But yeah,
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, Tom Clancy. That's another great one for fight scenes. I mean, that's more modern stuff, but he does a great job of the emotional aspects of what it's like, both pre and post combat. What's that's kind of, and so by reading those, it kind of takes me back. It's a little PTSD kind of activation, but it kind of takes me back into what it's really like to be there in the moment. And so
I haven't read them, so you're saying it's tight and impactful, and the actions are concise and like accurate.
Like Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. Reading that book.
Oh yeah,
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
that book is like my comfort book, I guess you could say. I probably read that book like 6 or 7 times. And then the other one, the other Tom Clancy book that I think is really good is Without Remorse. That's another really good one. And so if reading either one of those, if I'm ever having problems like tapping into my creative ness for fight scenes, if I just read one of those 2 books, I'm good to go.
I mean, he is a favorite of Hollywood. I mean, they certainly have taken a lot of his books and made them into
He does thriller writing, right? So that's why it makes it much easier to read through. The pacing is very short. The sentences and structure is meant to pull you through because it's a thriller. So it does really well with those. If you haven't, the Gray Man, the author, the TV series. If you haven't read that one,
I just read that. Didn't they just do a movie on it or something?
Yes, yeah,
Captain America, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
that's another good one. I've read his stuff too, up to like book 6 or 7. It's really good. It's really
I haven't read that. But I only read one book, and then I got.
I can imagine though when Michael reads that book, he gets in his little spy costume and stuff like that, and like has a little
you mean my uniform?
He's like, oh no. Yes, I'm there.
Oh yeah, I wink at Kevin all the time. Like he doesn't.
I thought you were twitching.
Window when I do it.
Ever since the one time I did and he hit me with a rubber chicken, I stopped immediately, man.
You guys are great to be with. I have a question here written down on my notepad. So, what do you guys, when you're writing fight scenes, what's a fight scene that like essentially energizes you versus a fight scene that like it's mentally exhausting for you guys to write? We'll go with JD first.
Well, knowing what a halberd is, that helps.
Okay.
Like literally, I'm seriously because I just started trying to read that last week, and I was like, oh my god, stop. Yeah, I just think we've all kind of hit on it. I think because I've read all my life, so obviously I just started writing authors, but I've read that my whole life, so that's obviously an influence. But also my film background is keeping it kinetic and tight and moving. But I mean, to me, not just fight scenes. I feel the same way, and maybe it comes from writing film where you want to keep every scene like very tight and energetic and kinetic and moving people with no lulls or fat or excess and I feel the same way in literature when I'm writing the books is I want a constant kinetic movement. And it doesn't mean always fight scenes. You can have kinetic energy through, as Tao hit earlier, emotional byplay. You can have it through you can have it a myriad of ways, but whether it be fight scenes or just any other kind of scene, it's just a constant tightness, no excess, no fat, moving, keep the energy going and kinetic energy going, whether that be through action or emotional deep diving or however you want to do it.
Okay. How about you, Kev?
Can you repeat the question? Because
I was like, I spaced out.
I heard JD's answer, but like it felt like an answer to a different question to what I heard.
Gotcha. So what, essentially, what energizes you when you're writing a fight scene versus like makes you exhausted?
Yeah, that's the question I'd heard. So I don't know, because I tend to write quite quickly in my first draft, and I enjoy writing fight scenes in my first draft. I never feel exhausted with the fight scene, and then when I'm coming back like through the book in the second draft, I only add really what I want to on that. So I mean, I don't feel like I really lose a lot of pace in my fight scenes because I try to be fairly conservative. But I also treat my MCs pretty badly as well. Which,
Yeah, you do.
Which I think can be exhausting for the readers.
Gotcha.
You're brutal.
just like a Rogue One situation, just everyone dies type deal, essentially.
No.
Very close. Very
Yeah.
close.
I mean, you should see what he does with the cleaver, man. I mean, he does amazing things with a cleaver in a fight scene.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh man.
Gotcha. Oh, and if you haven't watched Rogue One, it's been 6 years, guys, so you've had your chance. So we'll go with Mike, and then we'll end it with Tao.
Okay. A fight scene that exhausts me. I would say if I have too many people that I have to describe fighting, that can get like if while I'm writing, if I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to include what this character was doing during this like large battle scene, you know, like having to go back and like fix things and like add stuff back in because I realize, oh, I didn't keep this tight enough, or oh, I'm not including this character, because especially the farther you get into a series, because people tend to start to get favorite characters, especially favorite side characters, and so if you don't include them enough, you tend to hear about it, and so you know, like if I have them there and they're involved in the fight, I need to describe what they're doing in the fight. And if I have too many people at once and they're all fighting, that can get kind of like, oh my God, I got to go back and fix that again, especially during dev edits. But, ouch, James.
Yeah, because you have to almost do a third-person omniscient kind of narrative of like bouncing around the battlefield to do that.
Yeah, well, my two series, I have another series that I've been writing with Dakota Kraut called Year of the Sword. That one's third person, but my two main series that have my name on the cover are the Wandering Warrior and Threads of Fate. Those are first person. So I'm describing what my character is seeing that other people do. So then it's even sometimes harder to describe because I have to describe what my character is seeing them do while he's in the middle of fighting.
While making sense that he could see that while he's in the middle of like getting someone attacking him or whatever.
Exactly. And that can sometimes, but like the energizing stuff, that's whenever it's like, you know, quick, fast, like just back and forth, usually just my main character and one or two other bad guys. And they're just, you know, back and forth, taking each other on. That's very energizing to write.
Okay. And then,
No, they don't, Paul. No, they don't.
Metaphorical nut hit.
Yeah. Not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Moving on.
My wife is here. She'll probably hit me later.
I actually don't find fight scenes exhausting. I actually look forward to writing them. Those are the ones that I actually speed through whenever I have a combat scene or a fight scene. I get so many words down on those days because they're fun. You know, the things that kind of drive me nuts or that slow me down is writing.
The talking character development.
I actually don't mind talking parts. It's potentially the descriptions kind of annoy me sometimes.
The world building.
And world building, I don't mind depending on what type it is.
Gotcha.
But yeah, sometimes world building. The politics, sometimes because I write characters with sometimes there's a lot of political situations and dealing with all of that. They're important, but they bore me sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes.
I get it.
I'm exactly the same with that. It's sort of dialogue and action are just like fantastic to write. Like they just flow out of you, and then it's like a transition or like you have to have a description when you're writing it and you're like, oh god.
Yeah, how the fuck do I get out of this scene? Like,
Yeah, it's like how do I make it interesting because somebody's got to read this? It's like you've still got to make those bits engaging.
Okay, so we got a
yeah,
question
like you were
here
saying,
from-
world building and setup sometimes can be like, oh my god, I got to drag myself through it, man.
Yeah.
Just making sure. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I got a question here from James Smith. When reading other people's books, do you legends ever think, "Hey, I can do this better. I can do this so much better"?
No, that's kind of arrogant, man. You know, I wouldn't say that. I was reading a book. Obviously, I like the authors. Obviously, I think they're good.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm still reading you, I enjoy what you've done. I actually have the opposite problem quite often, where I'll read someone's work and go, "Shit, I wish I could do this," and I can see what they've done and how. Well, I can see part of what they've done or how they set this up, but I could never write this, and I hate you so much.
Especially with
Okay,
Michael,
fair
though, when I have to keep making payments for him to finally read my book. You know what I mean? So
7 more payments of $19.99.
yeah. Hey, I'll pay your car for just $99.95.
Oh man.
What about you, Kev?
Just the same. Basically, if I'm still reading the book, that means I'm invested, and I think books are really personal to the authors as well, and it's like a sort of insight into their minds and their souls. So I'd never feel like that. I wouldn't dream of like wanting to change anybody's things. The only thing I would ever take as ideas like, oh, God, that's great. I would want to work it in, sort of more the idea of how something's done than trying to copy what somebody's done.
I do think I could write using a halberd better than a certain person.
You did mention that earlier. It was a little bit arrogant of you.
Yeah. No,
So, trigger word for JD: don't use Halbert in the rest of the convention, guys, please.
No, I just, dude,
Yeah.
when the guy is saying I need an axe because I can't do a chopping motion with a halberd, and every time he uses the halberd, all he does is keep poking like it's a spear or pike. It's like, dude, like, holy fuck, man.
No, I would say there are. Now I don't want to sound conceited because everybody else said they don't do it, but like there are some times, I guess I'm a
Too
mix.
late.
There are some scenes that I read in books. I'm like, ooh, if they had just done this, this book would be so much smoother. But that's kind of almost like
But that's just the analytical in you, man.
Yeah,
I think
like
all
a-
creatives are.
yeah, like a dev editor kind of brain, like a developmental editor.
Almost like a hindsight type deal.
Yeah,
I do
exactly.
the same thing in film when I'm watching a film. Even if I love the film, I'm like, man, if they had cut this a little shorter or like had
Yeah.
a different angle on that shot.
Yeah,
it would
like
probably be-
oh, if they just tighten this part, if he would just tighten this bit up a little bit, or if she would have, made this character a little less whiny, whatever aspect of something. But then, like Tao was saying, there's other, and Kev were saying, like, there's other parts where I'm like, oh man, this is so, like, this part right here is what makes this book stand out. Like, this is the thing that makes this book awesome. This is why I'm still reading,
Yeah, like if I could write a she-wolf like Kev, I'd be in heaven, man.
She-Wolf.
This time yet.
Yeah, like there's just I guess I don't. It's hard to look at a book as a whole. I whenever I'm reading, I see it almost like scenes. Like I read each arc as almost an independent entity inside of a book, because that's whenever I'm writing a book, that's kind of how I do it. Because a series is one giant arc, and then you have a book, which is a book itself is a smaller arc within that series, and then in each book you have smaller arcs that propel the story forward. And
I think
so
that's also how you learn, isn't it? I mean, as writers, is all the stuff we read, and then doing stuff like that is how we get better and learn. And
Yeah, and so
Okay.
for me, like I guess I'm judging each arc independently. So maybe there might be one arc that I see that I could do better, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I think I can do a whole book arc better, or I could do a whole series arc better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think part of we can always pick at work, right? The thing is, for me, when I look at it, is if that person's already selling well, if I did any change on this, would that change the book, right? And how much of that book would become, would that book or whatever that made these readers love it so much that they're buying it, would that change? Probably, right? Because it's not that author's vision anymore. So it's hard to say, right? A lot of times it's like, okay, I want to change this, but you know what? They're already doing well. What the hell am I to criticize?
Yeah, exactly.
50 Shades of Grey, they've sold more books than I will ever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point.
I have such negative energy about that. Like, I remember my mom on my short film, she always give me shit because I'd show a titty or something like that. And then I walk in on her and her girlfriends watching 50 Shades of Grey. And right when I walk in, the camera's on the girl's muff. And I'm like, that is more pornographic than anything I've ever shot or written. And I can't believe for years you've been giving me shit because I have a bare titty in a short film. And
first panel I've been on where the word muff was used.
I don't know what else.
You're welcome.
That was the shot I walked in on.
Kev's like, oh God.
Next question.
Next question.
It's like, what did I get myself into? I got you, Kev. I got you. Have you ever created a side character that once you wrote a fight scene for, you wish that character became the main?
Ooh, that's a good question. So, if you want, I'll go first because mine's fast. The answer is no, but I have wished that I had set up the book to where I didn't have every chapter from the main character's perspective. So that way, maybe I could do, like once every 5 or 8 chapters, that my readers were used to jumping to a different perspective. In our genre, that's usually frowned upon. They usually like having one perspective. People don't normally like to jump perspectives. I have written some characters where I'm like, man, it would be so much fun if I could show the story from this character's perspective, especially after showing what they can do as a fighter. But unfortunately, since I'm already this far into the series. Yeah, I'm in first person. I'm already this far into the series. I can't now change it to where I can write a chapter from this character's perspective. I can't change it up now, and I'm already too far in. I can't do it. But yeah, that answers that question.
Okay. How about let's go to Tao to answer that one.
I don't think that's the main character, the side character that I wanted to be the main character. The main characters I enjoy. I do want sometimes to write a side story, and I do. For a lot of times, I'll write a side story for characters, which are completely separate, or I might end up doing side series or whole standalone book for them. But it's not. I don't want to shift the POV to. I've never had that.
Okay. Kev?
I do shift POV whenever I want, even if I haven't done it for 30 chapters and I want to do it, I'll still do it. Because it's my book and I don't care.
Yes, you do, Kev.
And that's a good philosophy, Kev. I like when you do it.
Kev follows no rules.
No rules. So in
I like
sort
it.
of the most recent book, I wrote the Rise of Oshbob. There's a side character, his sidekick, Anara. Now they're both very
girl.
different. Oshbob is like a juggernaut, a barbarian fighter type, and Anara's a stealth like assassin type. So in points in the book, they have to go their separate ways. But Inara, even though it's first person for Oshbob and he's the main character, Inara is practically the main character as well in the book. And I think a lot of people who've read that have felt that as well, to the point of had some people saying Inara is really the main character.
Nice.
I would say kind of my first series. There's a when they get portaled, they have a pet pig named Dozer, short for bulldozer. And when they get portaled, he goes from a pot-bellied pig into a 500-pound iron-tusked boar, but he still has the same mentality of the pig that wants to be petted and treats and all that stuff. And I probably more hear more good commentary about the pig than I do actually anything else. But in fight scenes, it's amazingly fun to write about a 500-pound tusked boar in the middle of a fight scene. And often he comes in at the last second to kind of save his dad's ass a lot of times. So I don't know about switching to main character, but he is certainly fun as shit to write.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see how much we got some time. Got about a minute. No, we don't. Look at the wrong one. All right, we got time. So let's see what the chat has. Another question here. This is for Tao from James Smith. He says, "How did you come up with P? How did you come with up P with the idea?"
I think it's just a rogue P.
I've
I've
had that before.
I've had that as well. It happens.
That was
Oof.
basically stealing the
fight-
idea. Yeah, I can read it. It was a few things. I mean, when you're writing fight scenes, a lot of times you don't want to write just, I'm going to punch the other person in the head until they fall down kind of thing. That's fun sometimes, but if you do that all the time, it gets boring. So figuring out ways where you can outsmart or have the characters outsmart the other character, especially if you preset it that your opponent is much stronger, forces you to think about how to outsmart or cheat, and that's actually a lot more fun for readers too, because they're always questioning, how is this person going to win? The actual idea was basically when I was doing research into what the greater elemental force is, and what that meant, and that was a lot of hours studying basic physics or college level physics, because I didn't actually understand greater elemental force or that well. So I needed to learn it and study that part of it. And once I studied that, and from all that research, it came from there.
Gotcha. And then this will probably be our last question. Then we'll kind of start. Oh, nice, Ryan.
That's fair.
What's your proudest moment? This is from Kyle Wilkinson. What's your proudest moment? Your proudest KO fight you've written in a book?
Ooh.
And we'll start off with JD.
I mean, I like all my fight scenes, but the one that comes to mind is there was it was in my first series, Blood Brothers. There was a part where VMC and his entire brother, his little party, are going at it, and they underestimated their enemies, and they didn't realize there was two alpha, kind of these four-armed gorillas they were fighting. There was two alphas there, and so they already lost two of their group who actually died, and they had gotten it down to one adversary left. One of the alphas left, but everybody was fucked up and literally on their last legs. And I think I referenced it earlier, right at the last second, as the main character is trying to pull himself to his legs to keep his most loved ones from getting killed. Dozer comes in full blast to it, and Dozer had gotten his ass kicked by that alpha earlier, but he comes in full blast, snorting, and plants the creature 20 feet into a tree with his tusks.
Gotcha.
So it was a good scene to write, fun scene to write.
Gotcha. All right. So with that, we'll kind of start closing it up, guys. I'm sorry, but
Well, dude, come on! You just stopped Michael from talking about his final KO at Walmart Black Friday, bro. Like seriously, man. I wanted to hear about him with the old lady.
So we'll kind of go into what your guys' latest projects is, and we'll kind of go from there. So we'll start with Kev, and then we'll move from there. And where to find you. So what's your latest project and where to find you?
My current project is God of the Feast. You can find us at kevinsinclair.co.uk and on Amazon. I'm easy enough to follow on Amazon. Yep, and that's it. I'm not working on anything else at the moment. And it's also not God of the Feast. I keep calling it that. It's actually called Creations Beyond the series. And I do that every time.
Sorry. How about you, JD?
I'm working on book 2 of The Dream. It's called York. It's my post-apocalyptic little RPG. That should be out in about 3 weeks. And then book 1 of that series and book 5 of my first series, Blood Brothers, the Audibles, should be out in about a month. And then I'm excited to, as soon as I finish this book 2 of this series, I think I mentioned in the beginning, I'm going to start book 1 of a series called Embers and Ash. It's based on a feature film script I started and never finished. That is going to be grim dark superhero lit RPG with a main female character that's African American, telekinetic super. So it should be interesting.
How about you, Mr. Tao?
Well, latest, you can find me at Starlit Publishing, which is where all my various books that can be found. The latest release has been Craig's book 3 of his System Apocalypse Relentless, and that's going to be book 1 of the new System Apocalypse Kismet, come November 1st. And then on top of that, there's I think my own latest release will be in December, which is for my serial, Climbing the Ranks, and that actually can be read for free on Starlit Publishing as well.
And last but not least, Mike, what you got for us?
Well, you can find me on michaelheadauthor.com. You can also find me on Amazon.
And at Walmart.
Well, you can find me at Walmart, but I might punch you in the face if you're an 80-year-old woman.
With a halberd.
Possibly with a halberd, but I'll only use the pokey part. Which is what she said. So right now I am finishing up the Wandering Warrior trilogy. Once that, and like I talked about before, that's
a good series, Michael, by the way.
Thank you. Once I finish up the Wandering Warrior trilogy, Judge, Jury, and Executioner, then I'll be going back and finishing the Threads of Fate series. That's going to be a lot of fun. That'll be finishing up. The Wandering Warrior will be done being written this year, and it should be done. It should be released beginning of next year, and then the Threads of Fate will be done being written next year, and maybe released end of next year and beginning of the year following that.
First of all, I want to say I'm honored to be on the panel with these 3 authors.
Guys,
they're brilliant.
For coming in. All right,
Except Mike.
This is my. Oh,
That's fair.
Of course. This is my first dipping of toe in here, so I'm just glad to meet everyone. So
Yeah, it was. You did a great
Great
job.
job,
job.
Emmanuel.
Thanks
Yeah.
very
Great
much.
job.
Thank you.
Yep,
All
did a
right,
great
well,
job.
I guess we'll sign
And I'll
off
be
here.
on.
Just
You
wave
guys,
to the
I'll be
camera.
on Discord if you want to shoot the shit or we're talk about fucked up Halberd use.
Yeah.
I feel like Kevin wants to say something and he just can't.
Many,
Hey,
many
Geneva,
things.
I've cussed at least 20 fucking times now. Are you happy with the whole cussing additives?
Yep. Thanks, James.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. But yeah, we'll cut it off here and wave the camera. Smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
Yeah. Thanks,
All
everybody.
right.
Appreciate you.
All right. Have
Bye.
a good one.
Yeah, season 2, man.